To slide or not to slide. Keep a firm grasp on what keeps you alive and gives your life meaning. Don't abandon yourself to anything. That would be the equivalent of the central metaphor of this card of letting things slide. We've all had lapses of discipline, but it's crucial to learn from them so we don't perpetuate mistakes. Here are some things I've learned from my long struggles with discipline. The problem with letting yourself slide is that the likelihood is that you'll keep sliding. If you start sliding off a mountain, you gather downward momentum. If someone on your rope team falls, I was a mountain climber back in the day, you have a window of a second or two to self-arrest with your ice axe before a slide becomes irreversible. When driving a car, a moment of letting go of the wheel due to nodding off or inattention can easily be fatal for you and others. But there are many other areas of life where letting go of the wheel leads to slow motion crashes or lesser destinies, but not necessarily to any dramatic short-term consequences. These slow motion slide zones tempt us toward downward momentum because there is no crevasse waiting to swallow us up, no tractor trailer waiting to slam into us if our attention lapses for a moment. Fast motion slide zones, sides of mountains and busy highways, tend to wake up our bodies, and survival instincts and innate animal intelligence will usually keep us vigilant enough to survive. Slow motion slide zones, however, often lure us with the sweet siren call of tragic magic. And you can see the glossary of Zap terms on the homepage of the site for definitions of some of these eccentric phrases I use, like tragic magic, Babylon Matrix, mutant, and so on. They give us room to slide, room to get a bit of a rush from downward momentum before any impact. For example, the new credit card, when I wrote this in like maybe 2012, I just received today wants to give me room to slide. This is not a metaphor, but a carefully engineered, slide-friendly opportunity to fall into debt. I got it as an emergency backup card, but it arrives with a glossy red coupon with a tempting offer. $100 in cash back for the first $500 you spend. The first year introductory APR is 0%. That's a 1-year slide zone made as comfortable as possible. The cliff, 365 days away, is the 27% APR that kicks in after the cleverly greased slide into debt zone. It's just like that friendly slide zone called a casino that will comp drinks in a room to make it as comfortable as possible for your life savings to slide away from you. Even more tempting are the slide zones that live in our bodies, those inner metabolic casinos. Any blood-brain barrier crossing substance can become a metabolic casino. White powders, including sugar, are metabolic slide zones. Ads for blood-brain barrier slider products, such as beer and energy drinks, typically show you buff athletes surfing giant waves and beach parties abounding with bikini and Speedo-clad hotties in states of sugar rush euphoria. Catch the wave, as the old Coke ad slogan put it. Go for the rush of that introductory slide zone. Obesity and type 2 diabetes come much later. And the catch the wave thing by Coke, was incredibly malevolently appropriate because basically a caffeine sugar combo picks up your blood sugar. Your brain lives off of sugar, glucose, so you feel great for a little bit and then you come crashing down, your blood sugar, you get hypoglycemic, and now you want another dose of sugar caffeine to catch another wave, but the waves get shallower and shallower until you're like drinking Coke all day just to try and stay awake. Consumer culture has brilliantly engineered slide zones available everywhere. We live in a 24/7 food carnival overflowing with ads, storefronts, and free samples of the latest fat, sugar, salt combos concocted by industrial food science to give us mouthfeel, as they call it, and light up our brain's pleasure centers. And you probably know that a fat, sugar, salt combo lights up the pleasure center of your brain as good or better than cocaine. To slide or not to slide is a question we answer dozens of times a day. Do I get a salad or a slice of that stuffed pizza oozing with melted cheese? Do I risk an unpredictable live human interaction or go for some online pornography I can control from my trackpad? Do I read an in-depth article or do I go for a rush of info distraction and social media voyeurism? To slide or not to slide, moment by moment, day after day. We can't just blame consumer culture because slide zones are built into human incarnation and are as basic as the first law of thermodynamics. Entropy means that things slide toward disorder unless energy is exerted in another direction. For example, consider where you live: house, apartment, vehicle, or tent. Your home base gives you hundreds of to slide or not to slide opportunities a day. You're about to crash. Do you throw your clothes on the floor or put them in a laundry bag? If your room is already a mess, you may throw them on the floor. That's an example of how downslides gather momentum. The more disordered your living space gets, the more heroic an effort it would take to put it right. The entropy hole gets deeper and deeper. Downsliding in one area makes it much more likely that I will downslide in others. If I just had several drinks, I'm not likely to tidy up my house a bit before I go to sleep. If I wake up in a messy house, I feel demoralized and less likely to use my time efficiently. Relationships are potential slide zones. Do I lash out at my friend who has annoyed me, or do I hold back, act diplomatically, and deal with issues thoughtfully? A tendency toward carelessness in a relationship, not returning messages, not making certain efforts, neglect, leaving a dirty dish in a communal space, can all be instances of relational downsliding that can gather momentum and destroy valuable connections. While I'm typing this, I must keep correcting my posture because I tend to slump a bit if I don't. So posture can be a slide zone if you're not mindful. Human incarnation is a slide-friendly zone, and there's no easy permanent answer. Many people prefer to hear about easy ways to slide upward. Supposedly slide upward, a magic diet pill, 5 hours of energy for just $1.99, how to get rich quick, 3 things to do to achieve total success, etc. The price of freedom from falling into the myriad daily opportunities to downslide is eternal vigilance. Unfortunately, most of us, including me, are not eternally vigilant. If downsliding weren't a problem, you probably wouldn't still be listening to this. If downsliding isn't a problem for you, it's unlikely you're having a human incarnation. Because we all do it sometimes. Some will use the inevitability of downsliding as an excuse to diss the whole possibility of a disciplined life. Lighten up, live a little, come on down and chill out with us in Margaritaville. If you are making efforts at self-discipline, the citizens of Margaritaville can feel nervous and uncomfortable in our company. Unconscious envy may surface as a disparagement of the disciplined person as uptight, repressed, and a party pooper. But to be fair to the Margaritaville perspective, discipline can pathologize into workaholism, becoming fitness crazed, or turning into a pleasure denier with an anxious, white-knuckled grip on life. Such people have overcorrected for downsliding and become fanatics in certain areas while allowing other regions, like what could give their lives deeper meaning, to slide into neglect. So this is a different form of workaholic downsliding. Pathological discipline is essentially a form of over-caffeinated downsliding. The opposite of downsliding is not hyper-discipline, but living a deeply fulfilling, meaningful, and whole life. Hyperdiscipline pathologizes when it involves extreme efforts in some areas, career, productivity, fitness, finance, while neglecting crucial aspects such as soulful relationships and creativity. Some people are both highly disciplined and wise enough not to neglect a major sphere of life, and these people can have active, engaged, adventurous lives that involve wholeness and deep fulfillment. While I know of very few people who suffer from pathological discipline, I know many more who suffer from downsliding. I've watched friends of great promise slide into diminished lives and even suicide. Downsliding is governed by the law of momentum. This means that the more you downslide, the more likely you will keep downsliding. This is what we call a downward spiral. You're stressed and you let your diet slide. You put on weight and feel bad about it, and that loss of morale causes you to let other things slide. Downslides in multiple life spheres gather collective momentum until people hit bottom. Sometimes people who hit bottom work their way back up, but other times they flatline, and sometimes that's all too literally. Tips for dealing with a downslide-friendly incarnation. Work with momentum. Fortunately, the principle of momentum works in other directions than downward. Work with momentum by summoning all your will to get, I don't know what that was, all your will to get positive momentum going in various life spheres, and then maintain or intensify it gradually. So, and by the way, there's a very important point here. Maybe I should have put it in the written part of the card, which is do not wait to feel motivated. There's research on this to do things. People think, I have to get psyched up. I just don't feel motivated to do this. No. Just take the action regardless of what you're feeling, and the motivation may follow the action. Don't put the donkey before the don't put the cart before the donkey, maybe. And don't think that you have to be motivated before you take the action. Take the action first, and don't base your discipline on what you're feeling, or you have zero chance of being disciplined. And by focusing on taking the actions, feelings usually take care of themselves, and this definitely works for me. For example, for the first few days of returning to cardio exercise, for example, I spend 25% of the year on road trips. So maybe on the road trip, I was doing a lot of walking, but I wasn't doing my intense elliptical trainer workouts. So for the first few days, the elliptical workouts aren't as fun. I can't do as much. Same thing when I used to be a runner. If I took a few days off from that, I have to overcome this speed bump of lethargy and of not being as conditioned, so I have to work at it harder for not as much exciting results. But soon, just give it 3 or 4 days and I'm back to enjoying the endorphin high. And now I want to do it, and the positive addiction of cardio gathers positive momentum. I'm psyched to see my house clean and looking good, and that motivates me to keep picking up and finding ways to make it look even better. And you could also see the Zap Oracle card working with momentum. Beware the what the hell effect. You broke your diet with one cookie, so you might as well eat the whole bag. Sound familiar? Psychologists call it the abstinence violation effect, AVE, which is a phrase that does nothing, whatever, for anybody, but more popularly it's known as the what the hell effect. From the sliding metaphor, we could call it the I slipped so I might as well keep sliding effect. Slipping is inevitable. The key is to catch yourself before a slip becomes a full-on downslide. As the Chinese say, there is no harm in falling down, only in not picking yourself up again. Another analogy is taking a wrong exit off the highway. When would be the best time to turn around? Answer, as soon as possible. Avoid the trap of being either in hyper-discipline mode or downsliding mode. And I used to do this all the time. I screwed up my diet. I'm like, oh, what the hell? I might as well just eat all the things I've been craving. And starting tomorrow, I'll pick back up again or whatever. For example, if you're faced with a choice between pizza and a salad, it doesn't have to be a choice between a salad and eating an entire pizza. You could choose to get pizza and a salad. You could get a large salad and a single slice of pizza, which you cut up and put in the salad. Be clever. Use a positive trickster energy and avoid the tendency toward all or nothing. Willpower is a fragile and ever fluctuating resource. Recognize when it's diminished due to fatigue, lower blood sugar, and sleep deficit, and often just by being late in the day. That's when people's willpower typically declines, especially if you're more morning oriented. A low willpower zone is a potential slide zone. We used to hear willpower disparaged as illusory. I don't believe in willpower. Became a diet book cliche, or they would just outright say there's no such thing as willpower. Actually, now to be fair, we did discover that there are hunger hormones that can overtake your will, and so it's not as simple as people who are struggling with overeating having a willpower deficit. So it does have a very strong biologically, hormonally determined aspect that can vary sharply from person to person. But there is also willpower as a factor too. It's not all one thing or the other. And there actually is a huge body of research now that shows that willpower is a measurable neurological resource. I'm not a neurological materialist, so it has, let's say it has neurological aspects. So you can see the book Willpower, The Greatest Human Strength. I got a lot from that. It's a great synthesis of this research on willpower. Willpower is a resource that tends to diminish during the day as we use it to hold back from certain things and to get ourselves to do other things. When you hold back from doing something you want to do or feel like doing, like an angry outburst at somebody annoying you, or to do stuff you don't want to do, like boring paperwork, you're using up your tank of gas tank of willpower is getting lower and lower. Typically, it is at its lowest ebb in the late evening, and that's when people are most likely to raid the refrigerator, drink too much, send regrettable emails, etc., fall for certain arousal addictions, like, I might get online, well, I'm too tired to write an email, but I'll maybe get online and see if there's any deals on this thing I'm interested in. And you could just get into the arousal addiction of buying stuff. And then maybe the next morning you realize, did I really need to get that? They've used up lots of willpower to be polite. So let's say we have this young couple getting home from work and they have not had dinner yet. So they've used up a lot of willpower to be polite to an irritating boss and to deal with many other stresses. They haven't eaten in a while, and low blood sugar lowers willpower. They're in a potential slide zone when they could easily get into an argument because the willpower needed to hold back from expressing irritation is critically low. Insufficient sleep also dramatically lowers willpower. So when your willpower of you and your mate are low, not a good time to get into a big discussion about something. Make sure everybody's rested and has had enough to eat and their blood sugar isn't low before having a high stakes conversation. And that's something I also try to emphasize is if you're going to have evaluate your life, because a lot of people just do this on the fly, their blood sugar's low and they're like, my life sucks, I never get anywhere. No, do not do life evaluation or relationship evaluations alone or with your significant other unless you're because these are some of the most cognitively demanding things you could do. These are so complex, you really need to get it right. So only do those if you can possibly manage when you're in an ideal state. So if I'm going to evaluate my life, I'm going to be writing in my journal. I'm going to be typing the whole time. If I'm going to have a relationship evaluation talk with a significant other, then like we should both be totally on top of it. Calm, make sure we're not interrupting each other. Do time turns. You speak for 3 minutes. I reset the clock on the phone, and then now you speak for 3 minutes. And we take notes while the other is speaking so that we're not exhausting working memory trying to remember all the points we want to get to and so forth. We're really going to try and do it. Not multitasking, not like, well, we're doing things in the kitchen. We're going to do it. It's a very high stakes thing to do. And to get it right, we're going to give it full attention. And when we are well rested and when we are both like on top of our game, if we want to get it right. There is a self-monitoring movement where people attempt to track and quantify various of their behaviors. And at certain points in my life, I'd have a whole sheet. I'd fill out, when I woke up, how much did I sleep, and all this kind of stuff. It could be very helpful. I'd often do it with another person. That would be like we would check each other and so forth. Now, most of my disciplines have gathered enough momentum that I'm at the moment not doing that. But if I found myself sliding, I might well bring back like, that daily worksheet thing. An easy way to do it, by the way, is just to do voice memos on your phone so you don't have to sit there writing things. And then in the next morning during a journal session, you can write up what I call a day map. So I might just get on that voice memo and be like up at 6:32 a.m. after 5.5 hours of sleep, so on and so forth. And just keep, did 800 calorie, elliptical trainer workout at resistance level 19 of 20. 62 minutes, whatever. Just keep track of all those like key parameters on that voice memo, and then you can like really look at it and organize it and put it together in one file or something, or in your journal the next morning, for example. That's a very easy way to do some better life tracking. Then you can look for trends and do like a monthly or weekly review. It's a good idea to keep track on a daily basis of how we're doing in all major life spheres: social, health, creative, financial, to see which we are giving our time and energy to that day and which, if any, we are allowing to slide. Try to catch any life sphere starting to roll downhill and give it some love and attention. Keystone disciplines. Look for keystone disciplines, disciplines that help you to be disciplined generally. For many, exercise is a keystone discipline. Exercise raises mood, confidence, and energy. It creates a feeling of health that may make you less likely to want to indulge in poor eating or abuse intoxicants. It calms me down. I'm less likely to to irritably, lash out at someone, for example. If I've just gotten a big endorphin load from, doing cardio, I'm going to be much more able to roll with some annoying thing that somebody did. For some, creatively managing their time keeps everything else in balance. Getting enough sleep is a huge keystone discipline, because we know from all kinds of research that if you didn't get enough sleep, you're more likely to overeat, you're more likely to screw up everything, you're not going to have as much cognitive firepower. And, so sleep is a keystone discipline. Positive momentum in one discipline can work synergistically with others. For example, if you keep your kitchen clean and your fridge well stocked, you're more likely to make yourself a healthy breakfast. If not, you're more likely to waste money on a sugary latte and pastry from a coffee shop. Consider this an auspicious time to be aware of the slide status of various life spheres and take corrective action where needed.